Okay, I'm going to start off by, there's a few new gals here today, right?
Yep.
Okay. Don't say any names. I'm going to just introduce myself real quick to let you know who I am and what I do and why I'm here. Erica Maynard is my name, and I've been teaching parenting classes since 2000. And I've been teaching here at HOI for the last 6 years. It's been at least. You started out as a night class on Thursday nights. Now it's a Wednesday morning class. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. I've been teaching since then. My day job is really kind of a night job because I'm an in-home counselor. I work with adolescent juvenile offenders and their families. So I work with the juvenile justice system, and I counsel kids that are the highest risk juvenile offenders. I counsel them and help them to, basically I do cognitive restructuring, right, and help them to think differently, and also, what else do I want to tell you? I work with the family on communication skills, anger management skills. You know, how can we live together in some sort of peace, harmony, togetherness, right? Unity. I try to basically teach those kind of ways to be together. I have 4 kids. I have a 20-year-old. He was almost 3 when I got sober, so I'm 17 years sober as well, in a 12-step program. It's a by God miracle, because I never really wanted to be sober this long, till I realized I was dying from a fatal chronic illness called alcoholism. Then I realized I had to try to stay sober, and I had to be sober, because I would never beat the game. I would never be able to drink successfully, and therefore I had to find a way to live with me, sober, because you know the leading cause of relapse, right? Sobriety.
Yeah.
Sobriety is so painful.
Yes.
Right? Living in here, my life is unmanageable, right? I've got to seek something outside myself, inside myself to make myself feel better, right? So in sobriety, we learn to go from here to here without putting, just go ahead and set them down there. Thank you. Without having to put substances in our body, right? Can you help her with that sheet? Anyways, so I'm sober 17 years. I'm married. I have 4 kids. They're all boys. 20-year-old. He's fantastic. He's in his 2nd year of college at Kirkwood, and he's singing in vocal jazz group I sang in college. It's pretty cool. And has the same director. It's really cool how our paths have kind of went like that. Twin 8-year-old boys, whoo, they are just like my husband, let me tell you. So we're saving chairs for them. Right? No, they're wonderful boys. But and then we have a 4-year-old that is keeping me coming back. I think he keeps me young, and I tell him every year on his birthday that I didn't know how much I needed him, because he was an unplanned pregnancy. It was one of those, whoa, happy surprises. That's what we call it. We don't want to put any negative spin on it at all, but to tell you the truth, I was like, I had just lost all my weight after having the twins.
How old is he?
Just 4 years old. I had just lost all my weight after having the twins. And then I still haven't lost it after having my 4th kid. He just kind of messed me up. Not that it's, you know, his responsibility. It's somehow his fault. No. 12-step program, AA, 3 words or less, is it's not them, right? So it's really not him, but makes me feel better to say that. Anyway, I'm kidding. So, and we just got a new puppy, too. He's a year old, and we just got him last week. So, but I want to tell you that one of the things about that I love about teaching parenting classes is that it helps me in my daily life. With all the hats that I wear in my life, parenting is like the hardest thing I do, next to being married. I mean, they kind of are neck and neck for hardest thing to do, because I have to keep coming face to face with myself. You know, our book says the first 12-step program, right, says here's the how and why of it. We had to quit playing God. It didn't work. So that means we had to quit assigning roles, telling people what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And you should act like this, and you should act like this, and you shouldn't act like this. And a mother should act like this, and my kid should never act like this, and my kid should always do this. And hear what I'm saying? We have to stop doing that. We have to stop assigning roles to other people and how they need to act, right? Trusting in our own intellect to determine, I'm the judger. I'm the beginning and end of everything, right? We have to stop doing that in recovery. And it doesn't say we have to quit playing God except when I'm your parent or except when I sponsor you, or, it doesn't have any of those, what's the word? Exceptions. Couldn't think of the word. Man, you get older, you start going through menopause. Woo! You start having some memory, like, what is that word? I don't know. You say the wrong word will come out of your mouth. I'm like, I think I'm having mini stroke somewhere along the way because it's not coming out right. Anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about discipline and punishment today, okay? When you think about punishment, what do you think about?
Punishing would be like intending to hurt someone.
Okay. Intending to harm?
Correct.
Or hurt, right?
Time out. What about go to your room? Yeah.
Time out. Go to your room.
Consequences.
Spanking.
Yeah.
Consequences.
Grounding.
I'll break your toys.
Hold on. Consequences, spanking.
Wouldn't that be intended to hurt?
Break your toys.
Throw them away.
That's kind of like an eye for an eye, right? By the way, we know that doesn't work very well, right? An eye for an eye. You break this, I'm going to break your stuff,
Yeah.
Sometimes as a parent, though, don't you feel... I got 4 kids. I've been teaching this stuff for a long time. And sometimes I still feel like I have no idea what the next right thing to do is. Right? Do you feel like that? So sometimes these things we do because we're at a loss for what the right thing to do is, and then we end up doing the wrong thing and the wrong thing and the wrong thing, right? Okay.
Grounding.
Grounding. Part of being in recovery also is moving, it tells you in step 1, do not trust your thinking. It will hurt you. Your thinking is trying to kill you. I sponsor a gal that says, there's a bitch that lives inside me and she's trying to kill me. And we relate, right? There's that piece in us that keeps taking us back to that which will destroy us, right? I was going to say something about that and I lost my train of thought.
That's funny though.
Yeah.
I love that.
I forgot. I was going to make a point about that. Oh, so in the first step, I remember, in the first step it says do not trust your thinking. By the time you get to the 11th step, it says we start to trust our thinking. Because our thinking is now guided by something higher than just our ego and our intellect. Okay? We start to live differently from a different place. Okay? We start to live from a different place than just here. Right? Does that make sense? So... Mother's intuition. You ever hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Vital sixth sense, right? We start to move beyond just our 5 sensory experience of what you can prove in a court of law kind of thing and move into a different way of living and thinking where we start to trust our intuition more, okay? Did you know that that's what the steps are about?
No.
That's what the steps are about, is moving you. So work with your sponsor. Practice all 3 legacies. If you don't know what those are, ask your sponsor. If she doesn't know what they are, get a different sponsor. Okay? Seriously, I'm not kidding. Okay, so when we're new, we have a difficult time, but I will tell you, I still, at 17 years sober, come up against things where I can't trust my thinking on this issue. Right? Because I'm right, I'm running the show, I'm going to get my way. Hear what I'm saying? And so I have to take the steps again in this area. Does that make sense? And so I move from not being able to trust my thinking because I'm just trying to get my way and I'm self-centered and I'm fear-based nature, and I have to move into trusting a higher power than me. Right? I call it the power that grows the trees, right? And I go to that and I check in with that before I move forward with my children, my family, my job, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's why I'm always telling you, work with your sponsor, work the 12 steps, right? Okay, and what else do you think of when you think of punishment? Intending to harm or hurt, time out, go to your room, consequences, breaking your toys, spanking, grounding.
Taking something away.
Taking things away, right? How about, what else? How about yelling?
Yeah.
We call that verbal aggression in the counseling field, right?
Yep.
Verbal aggression, yelling. Because that is a form of intending to harm. We call that verbal aggression. I will tell you that the definition, oops, A-G-G-R-E-S-S. When you're up here, spell check sometimes gets broken in your head, and you're like, how do you spell that? I don't know. Punishment, the actual definition is very close to this first thing, Allison. It's to inflict pain or injury, right? And think about punishment with parenting. Is that really what you want to do to your kids, to inflict pain or injury? Okay, I want to talk about that for a second. Okay, to inflict pain or injury. To inflict pain or injury. Man, when you look at that, that's the definition. When you look at that in terms of parenting, gosh, it makes you kind of take a step back, doesn't it? Because doesn't all these things inflict pain or injury? But why do we do it? To teach them. If I don't teach them, they're not going to learn. And isn't that energy behind what you're doing? Right? When you're in that moment and you're spanking or you're yelling, do you have composure? Do you have peace? Do you have relative peace and ease on the inside?
I'm thinking,
no.
motherfuckers.
That's right. You're thinking, if I don't teach them, they're not going to learn. And let me ask you, was that how you were parented? That's how I was parented. I want you to think about when you were parented, if you were yelled at or spanked. I mean, ever. I mean, because some of us had better childhoods than others. I had actually a very loving childhood, but there was a lot of substance abuse and there was a lot of violence, you know, not between my parents, but between my dad and my older brother. And my dad was a daily drinker, you know, and pretty much. And so my parents were hippies. So, but my dad didn't have anger management skills at all. And so I want you to think about when you were a kid, if you were yelled at or spanked especially, and yelled at and sent to your room, think about how you felt when you were little. Did you feel like, oh, wow, I really need to reflect on my choices, and I just really don't think I did a very good job there, and I really need to straighten up, and maybe I could try this time, right? You weren't thinking that, were you? Me neither.
I've been thinking about this lately because I've been getting frustrated with the kids, and I know it started when I was drinking. When I start losing it, they start losing it. They reflect my behavior. And,
yes.
I've been thinking about it, and I'm going, God, I feel so bad, you know, for the kids, because I know it's not right parenting, but...
Right.
And I'm thinking, you know, they're not learning anything. They just, their faces drop, or...
Right.
I'm like, shit. And then I just keep doing it.
Yeah, and notice what you said. When I lose it, they lose it. Is that what you said?
Yeah, when I'm getting not being consistent, they stop. When I start losing, the old start going, yeah.
And I want you to notice how true that is. We forget that as our kids get older. We can really see it when they're newborns. Right? When you have a newborn baby, can't you really feel that when you get frustrated? I mean, that was one of the first things my mom taught me when my baby had a cranky time, my first one, and it was like from 5 to 7:30 or something, you know? And do you know that it's normal for newborns to cry up to 6 hours a day?
Mm-hmm.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy it's only 2 or 3. You know, I was like, could I handle 6? No.
The baby can feel how you're feeling. So
yes.
If you're frustrated with them,
the baby can feel how you're feeling. There is an energy, and if there's anything you learn from me, you need to get this. There is an energy. We are responsible for the energy we bring into the room. And especially as women, okay, we are not only responsible, we spend a lot of time in this class talking about the physical environment and what kind of educational toys, how much TV time, screen time does your kids have? how much one-on-one time, family time, you know, like the physical environment of your kids. Really look at what is the emotional environment in your home. What is the energetic environment in your home? Because we set the stage for that. You know they have a saying that you could cut the tension with a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that saying for a purpose, right? Because you can feel it. If somebody's been fighting and you walk in the room, you're kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
What's going on? You know, because you can kind of feel it. And so your kids pick up on your energy. That's not good for us, you know? I mean, because we're us, right? I didn't come to recovery having these skills. I had none. I was just a big ball of survival skills, which are character defects, which are basically maladaptive coping skills. They're what I've done to survive and to get by, but they don't necessarily help me very well. They don't help me move forward. They don't help me, do you know what I'm saying? They don't help me on the inside, right? They actually harm me and my kids. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So you got to be careful about the energy that you bring into the room. All right? You got to really be careful about that, because like when I was little, and my parents spanked me or sent me to my room, yelled at me, whatever. By the time I was 4 years old, by the time I was the age of our youngest kid, 4 years old, I wanted out. I wanted to die. I wanted out of my house. I packed my shit on a regular basis to get out. Right? I even took it to the curb one time and sat there with the old English sheepdog that we had. My parents raised old English sheepdog, and I'm 4 years old, and I sit on the curb because I can't go any further because I'm 4, you know. But I want out, man, and I carried that wanting out attitude that I just want to disappear. I didn't want to kill myself necessarily. I wasn't necessarily suicidal, but that became a much more plausible option the older I got. That suicide came more and more into my mind, right? Because I just wanted to disappear. It was too hard to be on the planet. I couldn't deal with everything that was going on the inside. My life is unmanageable by me, right? And I'm 4 years old, and this is the mind that I brought to alcohol at 15. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. This unmanageability. Remember, the spiritual malady that I'm just not okay. Nothing's ever good enough. I have a disease of chronic malcontent, right? The shine wears off everything, and it doesn't take long, right? You get a new boyfriend, a new car, a new job. It's great for a couple weeks, and then it's like, I want something more. Because guess what? How much more do we need? Just enough so you don't have to depend on God, by the way. But also, it's just never good enough for me, right? And this disease of chronic malcontent, this restless, irritable discontent is what is driving my mental obsession to take something from out here and put it in here to make me okay. And it sets me up for the physical allergy. Does that make sense? So it's a spiritual malady that was set up when I was a little kid. I'm not blaming my parents, because I will tell you that we have what's called a disease of perception, which means I don't necessarily see what's really happening in the room. Be aware of this. How do you know if a situation is questionable? If you are in it, it is questionable. Okay? Seriously, if I'm in it, I need to question myself, because I think sometimes that I know and you don't, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I have to really question that, because I have a disease of perception. I don't necessarily see things as they are. I see things through my lenses, right? Which means that I don't always see my husband correctly, because I see him through self-centeredness and how he's not serving me. I don't see my kids through the lens of love and patience and tolerance and unity all the time, right? I don't see that, because I see them through the lens of self-centeredness, and it's really sad when you realize that you just want your kids to behave so that you're more comfortable. Behave. I don't want to have to work that hard. You need to behave so I can feel better, right? When you say it like that, it's kind of embarrassing. It doesn't sound real good, right? But you can't move forward until you own the truth about where you're at. Real humility is about being where you're at and moving to God from there. Does that make sense? Moving in a different direction, if you don't want to use the big G word, but moving forward in a positive direction. You have to admit where you're at first. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have to be responsible for the energetic environment that we bring into the room, right? And we have to take full responsibility for our role in the home, right? I have set my kids up to fail many times because I put them in impossible situations and I just expect them to behave. When the truth is, all that my kids do wrong, seriously, we call it being bad, and I don't like to say that, okay? But the only thing my kids do wrong is they act their age all day long.
Yeah.
That's it. My 8-year-olds are constantly acting 8. As a matter of fact, last year, Jameson comes up to me and says, Mommy, are we acting 7 today? I said, yes, as a matter of fact, you are acting 7 today. Very 7, you are. Anyways, there was something else I wanted to say about that. Let's move into discipline. When you think about discipline, what do you think of?
I was going to say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
That's funny when you're saying that act their age. There's a question on the survey that was kind of tricky. I can't remember which one it was, but I was like, okay, how do I answer this? Because it says, where is it? My child misbehaves just to upset me. That's a question of perception there. Maybe they're just acting their age. You know, maybe and I was thinking that's a tricky question.
Some kids do it for the attention.
Yeah, and I was thinking,
well, but how many of you,
really
I think that's a misnomer that kids do it for attention. How many people in the room never want attention of any kind? Because it's not true. We all want attention at some time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have children if you didn't want attention at some point in time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean? Like, I feel like they can't get the positive attention. So
yes, that is true. That is true. But I think that there is way more to why kids are acting out than that.
Yes.
But because I think we all want attention.
Yeah.
And that's why I always have told you, when you get home at night is the very first 15 minutes you should spend with your kids. Connect, because if you don't, they will be getting your attention. They will get it from you, you know. That's right. So you have to give them what they need because we all want attention. Do you know that newborn, I'll get with you in just a second, Allison. You know that newborn babies die, failure to thrive, if they don't have touch and love and attention and affection. It is a need. When I was first sober, I was no longer dating. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't sleeping around anymore. And I somehow, when I would sit on the couch and watch TV or whatever, even sit in meetings, I would like do this and like rub my shoulder, rub my arm and stuff. And I didn't know why I did that. And I looked back on that and I realized I need touch. I need physical touch. And it's like I was getting my need met of physical touch, right? Without having to go outside myself, right? Because I knew, guess what? A sickie doesn't pick a wellie. Okay? So I knew I wasn't some great prize, and I knew that I wanted to stay sober. So I didn't want a sick guy, man. I'd had plenty of those in my time. I wanted a guy that was on the path that I was on. I wanted a guy, I knew I was no great prize in early sobriety, but I knew I was finally, for once in my life, I was on a path that went somewhere. And guess what? It does. It does go somewhere. Right? And so I wanted a man, well, I was willing to be alone for the rest of my life. That's a clue right there. I was willing to be alone for the rest of my life if that's what I was supposed to do. Because I would much rather be alone than be with a sick guy. I was going to say something else. Trying to clean up my language would be a good example. I have a horrible vocabulary with swear words. Anyway, I would rather be alone than be with a sickie. I'd rather be alone than be with a crazy relationship. Oh my God, do you know how much of your attention and energy that takes?
Oh, yeah.
Plus, as women, we end up putting them in as our higher power.
Yep.
Because we get so dependent on them, and you'll know what your higher power is. What do you think about all day long?
Yep.
Okay, what do you focus on and put your attention on all day long? That will be your higher power. Does that make sense? So, a sickie doesn't pick a wellie. I wanted a man that was worthy of the woman that I was becoming. Mm-hmm. I knew that I wasn't some great prize. There. Okay, my thing turned off. I must have to touch it every once in a while. The screen went blank. Okay, so let's move into, were you going to say something real quick, Allison?
I was just on the lines of punishment. And
okay,
discipline.
yeah.
And going back to Deja's question.
They misbehaved just to upset me.
Correct.
Right.
I feel like when I was a child, I was definitely punished more than disciplined. Yes. And the reason that I acted out was because I didn't feel good about myself. I never got any sort of affection. Not necessarily affection, but I didn't get any
positive,
praise or anything
right?
Positive that I
no
did.
praise.
So naturally, if I didn't feel good about myself, I wasn't
That's right.
Be good.
That's right. Really, that's part of discipline, is to really praise kids. Catch them being good. Catch them being good. And how does that look? And you want to, let me tell you, you want to praise the behavior, not the kid. And here's why. Good boy. You did that. That means you're a good boy. Yeah. Well, do you ever make mistakes? Yeah. You have adult brains, right? I mean, well, if you're not 25 yet, you may still have time to get your adult brain, so there's still hope. Oh, that's a joke, okay? That's supposed to be funny. But seriously, we don't really get our adult brains until we're 25. About 25. Between 20 and 30, really. We don't get our adult brains, which means our really higher level thinking, really big picture thinking, right? Cognition really starts to get better around that, about the, and then the older you get, you start to lose your memory, but your cognition's better, and you can think about things better, but you have no memory. I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? See what I'm saying? Losing my train of thought. Oh, positive. Yes, thank you. Positive. Catch them being good. Why? So you make mistakes. I make mistakes. We have adult brains. You think kids are going to make mistakes?
Yeah.
They're going to do things wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So don't punish just because they're acting their age. Right? Don't punish just because they're acting 4. I use humor. Are you 4? Just checking, To remind myself, I use humor all the time. It shifts your energy around from this to joy. To appreciate your kids rather than depreciate your kids, right? To be grateful and have this attitude of gratitude, right? Gratitude is an action. It's not a feeling. You will know that I am grateful for my life by what I do. Am I here to serve? Am I here to help? Or am I here to get? Am I a giver or am I a taker? Some point in your recovery, you have to shift from being a taker, which happens automatically. I mean, it's just a part of my DNA. I swear to God, I'm so manipulative. I just want. And in recovery, we start to address that and go, that's not who I want to be. I'm willing to do whatever it takes so I don't have to be her anymore. I don't want to do this to my kid anymore. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to leave from here today and never go forth and never sin again. Ain't going to happen, okay? But that's why we have step work, 10 and 11. 10 shows you how to move throughout your day. You continue to watch, right? 11 is morning preparation for the day, nightly review. How did I do? I review my different areas. How did I do in my marriage? In all these questions. How did I do with my kids? In all these questions. How did I do at my job? In all these questions, right? So you look at all your relationships in your nightly review, and so you can look at parenting and go, where did I miss the mark? What could I have done better, right? And you use that real tangible power that you pray to that feels like a flimsy reed, but it's here, it exists. If it didn't, I don't know how any of us would be sober, right? Because I don't know about you, but I'm a chronic alcoholic. I have a real bad drinking problem. And my drug of choice is, what do you got? I'm a pig. I don't discern that much. I want more. That's my drug of choice, right? My drug of no choice is alcohol. When we look at discipline, what do you think of when you think of discipline?
I don't think I know the difference.
What's that?
Appropriate.
Appropriate?
Yeah, I can't think of the word I was thinking of, but
As opposed to inappropriate,
Yeah.
right?
It teaches them?
Teaches. To discipline means to teach.
but how?
Exactly.
Appropriate behaviors, you know.
But how? What do you think is the most important discipline strategy you have with your kids?
To talk to them.
Communication is good.
Consistency.
Yep. Okay, hold on. Let me write these down. Communication, consistency. What else?
Structure.
Structure. Let me talk a little bit about structure. Routine. I will tell you, how much routine did you have when you were out there?
None.
None. None at all. Guess what? We have very little routine even in early recovery because it can be a little hectic, a little crazy. That's why they have you so busy in treatment so that you know what it feels like to be busy, because if you're going to be a woman in recovery, you will be busy. You will be very busy. Okay? You will be busy. We had no structure and routine when we were out there. Kids under the age of 6, okay, still have their developing brain, right? We've talked about brain development in the past, right? Having a structure and a routine, not a rigid, oh my God, it's 6 o'clock, we got to have dinner now. Not like that. But in a general way, we wake up on the same pillow. Once in a while my kids sleep in the living room because we have a party on Friday night with the movies or whatever. And popcorn, one of those big time parties. That's how I party. And we have fun. It's the most fun I ever had. Is with my kids. We think that we want this love from him or this love from these other people out here or people in recovery. The real love that I want is from my children. And I really want to give that love to my children. But how many times do you backburner your kids for other people, right? Now, just because recovery has to come first does not mean my kids come second, okay? Because my kids have to know how important they are to me. But if I don't take care of my recovery, somebody else is going to be raising my kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's finish with this here. Structure and routine develops organized brain. If we are getting up about the same time, if we have breakfast, if we kind of have the same routine, we take baths every night, or at our house in the winter, it's every other night. In the summer, it becomes every night again, right? But in a general way, we have a routine. It gives kids a sense of efficacy, that they can do that. Why do you think that is? Why does it give them a sense that I can do this?
Security.
Gives them a sense of security. When you came to treatment, did you feel like there was no ground underneath you? Like, what is going on? This is a whole upheaval. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. And you're just like, oh, and you almost feel like you need to do a meditation of groundedness. Women really need to do a lot of grounded meditations. Men are good at being grounded. Women are like, woo, right? Men have to do meditations to kind of get connected with these upper 3 chakras, right? Because they're very grounded, right? We are not. So we have to kind of meditate and get hooked up with the earth. It's very good for us. That's how kids feel. When they don't have a structure and routine, they never feel like they have a ground underneath them because they never know what to expect. With a structure and a routine, they develop a sense of trust. They develop a sense that I'm going to be okay, and there are actually neural pathways in the brain for trust. That's like why when you're practicing spiritual principles in whatever 12-step program you're practicing, okay, the more you practice them, it's almost like building spiritual muscles. The more you practice them, the stronger they get. We have neural pathways in the brain. Fear responses, trust responses. I'm going to just break it down really simply, okay? I think of them like bike paths. They're rocky at first, but the more that you use a bike path, the more well-worn it's going to be. You don't want your kids' fear bike paths, neural pathways, to be the ones that get ingrained and grooved. You want their trust. I'm taken care of. I'm okay. One of my mantras is right here, right now, I'm okay. Because I've had anxiety in recovery off and on that's like, if I told a psychiatrist, they would want to medicate me. Okay, I've had bad anxiety. I can't take medication for my anxiety. Are you kidding me? I want to stay sober. And the people that I see taking meds for long term, they don't stay well for long term. Not to say that if you need them for a short period of time, go for it, right? And if you certainly need them for a long period of time, if you have schizophrenia, right, you probably need some medication. I have friends that have schizophrenia. They need their medication. Without it, they are strapped down, right? I see way too many people like, I don't feel good. Oh, so let's take a pill, right? I'm not going to get into that because I'm not a doctor, and I'm not telling you whether to take or not to take, so do not misunderstand me, okay? Because I'm not your doctor. That is not my business. Just sharing my experience, okay? So I want my kids to have this trust, to build this trust neural pathways in their brain, okay? Emotions that we feel are actually molecules that happen between the synapses in our brain. They are actually the feelings that we have, emotions. Don't you think of them just like air? Like they're not really there. Guess what? Air is actually molecules too, right? Kind of trippy to think about. The feelings that you feel are actually molecules that course through your bloodstream. So when you're pregnant, it's very careful to not go into self-pity, depression, all those. Self-pity is one of the lowest vibration feelings you can have. Everything on the physical plane exists on a vibration. There is a continuum for vibration for the human body, right? I had no idea we were going to talk about this today, but physics tells us that everything's on a vibration. The rate at which the electrons and the protons spin around the nucleus, that rate is the rate at which, maybe the protons are inside the cell. I don't remember, but I know at least the electrons spin around. Then there's protons and neutrons, but anyway, it's been like since 8th grade since I did this class. But I actually did take this in college too. I took neural bases of behavior, right, in college, so which is where I learned all this stuff. When everything, there's like a range, right? And we have a range of very low vibration, which when we get sober, we're very low vibration. I kind of think of it like a pillar of light, right? When we get sober, we're very low vibration. And watch people in recovery, when they first come in, they look very hard, plasticky, right? The longer you stay sober, the more you work on your spiritual condition, okay? And the more you change your attitudes and actions, and I'm not just talking about the external actions, I'm talking about the internal actions. Right? The internal actions, instead of going to fear, going to trust. Instead of going to judgment and anger, going to compassion and gratitude, right? Those are internal actions that we have to take, right? And the more that you do that, the more that you kind of raise up this pillar of light, your vibration speeds up and increases. It's this amazing thing. Watch what happens. And when you're on that path, people will tell you, what have you been going to the gym or something? I mean, people have thought I've lost weight. I've actually gained 20 pounds. But my vibration is amping up. You know what I'm saying? So I just put that on the tape that I gained 20 pounds. Nice. Well, not like you can't tell. Anyways, not that I would ever intentionally shame myself. I didn't mean to do that. I'm just trying to be funny. But anyways, this range of vibration, you will notice because people will say you've been working out, or I can see it in your eyes. And you watch, when you get a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years sober, watch the new people come in, all right? And watch them change, right?
The aura changes.
That's right. The energy changes. The aura changes. It's this way that we try to talk about this change that we can't explain, right? That we can't really explain. We don't really have the language to explain it, but we watch it happen, right? So anyway, structure routine is so important. Do you know what they call a disorganized brain that doesn't work well together? Like this side isn't working with this side, and it's like not working together in symmetry. It's called ADHD.
Oh.
Attention deficit disorder.
Yes. And notice that when you develop spiritual principles and trust-based behaviors and conduct, where you go to trust, you go to faith, you go to gratitude, you go to compassion, you go to non-judgment versus judgment, anger, resentment, fear, right? When we try to move in this direction, right? This I call living backwards. This is like moving forward, right? Do you get that? And some people call it moving towards God. You don't have to use the G word if you don't want to, but I do. Moving forward, moving in a positive direction. This is living backwards. Guess what living backwards is? EVIL. And guess what? It's not them. They're not doing it to me. My conduct, my attitude, my actions are doing it to me. Does that make sense? I make decisions based on self, which later I find place me in a position to be hurt. Right? Does that make sense? But nobody else is doing it to me, but don't you always think it's them? And if they wouldn't have done this, and they wouldn't have done this, and they wouldn't have done this, and if they would just stop doing this, I'd be fine, right? It's not true. It's not true, because guess what? Even if they stopped, you'll have another thing on your list that they need to change so that you can be okay. Do you know why? Because we're lazy. I want you to change so I don't have to. How appealing is that? Doesn't that sound wonderful? Like, I want to put that on my tombstone. Erica was so lazy that she wanted everybody else to change so she didn't have to, right? I don't want that on my tombstone. Okay, so structure and routine is vital. What else do you think about with discipline?
Reflective listening.
Listening, yes, with communication skills. Reflective listening is so important. And I will tell you that compassionate listening, reflective listening, compassionate, because, and you know, we need to learn how to speak too. We need to know how to, speak without hurting others, right? Speak with compassion as well, and kindness rather than judgment, fear, and anger. But reflective listening, what that sounds like is you're with your kids and they're like da-da-da-da-da, and maybe you have a teenager, maybe you have a 10-year-old. Here's a great example of reflective listening. My son, pick him up, he's at my big boy, the 6'4" one. He's in like 8th grade. I pick him up I got a galley sponsor in the passenger seat. He gets in the back seat, so I'm kind of looking at him. And I start kind of barking at him about, I don't know how we got on the subject, but he never would take piano lessons, And I'm like, I can't believe I let you get away with not taking music, You need to be in music. And he's like, and he started crying. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just kind of, who knows what I was doing, but I'm sorry for talking to you. I shouldn't have been barking at you right when I pick you up. There's no purpose for it. I'm not even mad, I'm just like, I just wish you would be in piano. And he goes, no, it's not that, Mom. It's that today's Martin Luther King Day, and everybody was talking in the class today, and he's crying. And he's like not sobbing, but he's got tears coming down his face, and he's kind of weeping a little. And I said, oh, honey, I'm so sorry that the kids were talking so you couldn't hear what was going on in the tape, because they played the I Have a Dream speech, right? And he had said that. And everybody was talking. And I said, oh, I'm sorry that you couldn't hear what was talking, because they were talking so you couldn't hear. And so that's a form of reflective listening. I could have also said it, I hear you saying that you couldn't hear what other people were saying, or you couldn't hear the video or the speech because of other people talking. And he would have said, no, that's not true. And what he did say when I said, oh, I'm sorry that they were talking and you couldn't hear what was going on and you couldn't hear the speech, he goes, no, Mom, that's not it. See, your kids will correct you. If your husband, your spouse, your boyfriend, they will correct you, but you are responsible to do the reflective listening. What I hear you saying is this, is that correct? Super important if you're a girl, right, and you got boy kids, really need to do reflective listening. Got to do it with girls too, but especially with boys. Of course, if you got a male partner, you need a lot of this, because they don't hear what we say, and guess what? We don't hear what they're saying either, right? So reflective listening is so important. He goes, no, Mom, that wasn't it. And then this will really get you. He said, what I'm upset about is that they don't get it. He goes, and he started sobbing, and he goes, they don't get how important that was and how important he was to our country and to our future. Wow. And me and the gal that I sponsor, we're like, he's going on and on about it, and we're like, oh, who is this kid, man? I felt like saying, will you sponsor me? Right? Our kids are so spiritual, and sometimes we don't see it because we're too busy zipping around. That's why in order to have a relationship with your kids, you have to have a relationship with your kids. And that's the next thing I want to say about discipline is discipline has to do with the relationship. Kids learn in the context of the relationship. Okay? When this is going on, how much am I listening to my parents? I have shut them out, cut them out, amputated. I don't detach with love. I've learned to amputate with malice. I do not detach with love. That has been my survival skill. It kind of looks like, screw you. That's what it looks like. Right? And I've learned to do that. I dismiss people. Right? If they don't abide by my script that I've written for them in my head, by the way, that I haven't told them about. Okay? Children learn in the context of relationships, which means I have to have one if I want them to learn from me. Just because they live in your house does not mean you have a relationship with them, okay? I always say to my families that I work with, your kids, you know your kids best if you know your kids. I always have that caveat because I have met a few families that the parents don't really know the kids. They don't spend any time with them, so they don't know their kids best. You know your kids best if you know your kids, which means your kids are not just a reflection of you, right? Your kids are not just an extension of you, right? They're actually little humans that have their own worth and value outside of the relationship they have with me, right? But I want to grow that relationship with them. And I always think when I'm figuring out what I want to do, how I want to respond to a misbehavior, right, when I'm kind of going, what's the best thing to do here, right? Because I'm kind of reflecting with myself, what do I need to do here, right? What do we need here?
Positive reinforcement.
I kind of ask myself, is this going to build the relationship or is it going to tear us apart?
Can you start a relationship anytime? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I need to.
There are miraculous things that can happen if you stay sober. I will tell you, I cannot answer all your questions today for the next 20 years or 30 years or 40 years that you're going to be a mother to your children. I can't. But I will guarantee you that if you stay sober and are on a path of recovery, that's not just sobriety. Recovery is very different than sobriety, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a path of recovery, you will be given what you need to get your kids what they need one day at a time. But you can't know it all today. Right? But you'll be given what you need. And I just know that because I've had it happen with me. And there are some days when I'm like, I have no idea what the right thing to do here is, right? Yeah. And we learn and we learn and we learn, right? I just keep wanting to be better than I was. Does that make sense? Yeah.
While you go with that structure and routine, like, because I have work as a parent, like the forecasting of it, communicating it.
Communicating the structure, yes, communicating the structure and routine. Having conversations about what to expect, especially with little kids,
Expectation.
Yeah, so that they know, okay, 5 minutes we got to pick up because we got to go to school, or 5 minutes we got to pick up, we got to eat dinner, that kind of thing. Forecasting, very good. The other thing I want to say about, I was talking about reflective listening. Compassionate listening has to do with not listening with your intellect. Do you know that the opposite of listening is not, the opposite of speaking is not listening, it's waiting. Most of the time we are not really listening. We're just waiting for our turn to say what we think about what you're saying. If I'm sitting there thinking about what you're saying, what I think about what you're saying, how I agree or disagree or what I want to say to you, I'm not listening to you. I've had to learn compassionate listening in my relationships, my great relationships. That's what I call my family relationships, man. And that includes my spiritual family in AA, and by the way, you know that? That includes my spiritual family. I've had to learn compassionate listening, where you're listening from somewhere beyond this, right? I keep telling you, we keep living from here to living from here. You ever take deep breaths? I'm deep breathing all day long, right? One of the best things I do for my kids is role model. I think that this is the most important thing we have to offer our kids.
Modeling positive behaviors.
Yeah. Who you are is demonstrating to your kids something so loudly that what you're saying doesn't even matter. Who you are. That is your inheritance that you give to your children. Do you know that? Who you are is your inheritance. Right? And don't get me wrong, we all make mistakes. We all do stuff. I mean, when I find myself, when I first got sober, I yelled at my kid every single day. This little baby was 2, almost 3, a month and a half. When I was a month and a half sober, he turned 3. And I yelled at this little baby every single day like it's his fault that I'm late.
Yeah.
Who's the adult, right? I'm blaming everything on this little kid and I'm yelling at him, I'm yelling at him with an energy behind it that nobody deserves to be talked to like that. And I got sober. I didn't even know I did it. I couldn't even see myself. I was so steeped in my self-centeredness and my self-righteousness and my arrogance and my entitlement. I had no idea that that's who I was being with my own baby. He's a baby. I think they're babies till they're like 12.
Yeah.
Because they are. I know about brain development. And even 12-year-olds don't have very mature brains, okay? Watch them for a few minutes. You can tell their brains are not quite clicking yet, right? It took me, after I noticed I yelled at this baby. Hi, that's okay. Come on in. After I noticed I was yelling at him, it took me a year to stop. It took me a year of practice to stop yelling at him. Okay? Started that I didn't even notice. And then it went to where I'd notice,
Is this where you claiming that people from the old timers?
This is one thing I did was that I would pretend that other people were in my house, the old timers from the meetings that I went to. Right? I pretended that they were in the house because I knew I didn't have any parenting skills when I acted differently at home than I acted in public. That was my clue that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Because the kind of crap I could get away with when I thought nobody's watching me.
You taught me not to yell. When I left you last time, I didn't yell anymore.
That's fantastic.
I just picked it back up so I could
I just picked it back up. I'll come in and I'll be like, I stopped yelling at Chance, my oldest. I stopped yelling at him. By the time he was 6, I didn't really yell at him much at all. And actually, he would even say to me, if I would kind of raise my voice at all, he'd be like, because I'm kind of loud. He'd say, Mommy, you're not supposed to talk to me like that. And of course, I say, you're right. When your kid calls you on your stuff, I know you're the parent and they're the kid, but come on. If you're wrong, admit you're wrong. Right? If you're acting like an ass, admit it. You're not going to change otherwise. If you stand behind, you don't tell me what to do. You're the kid, I'm the parent. Now, don't get me wrong. I am the alpha female in my house. I'm the alpha. You can ask my husband on that. And I kind of jest, but kind of not. Try not to run the show too much, but I have a presence in my house. And there's a degree of respect, but guess what? I give just as much respect as I'm expecting in return, right? I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought. Let's go back to this. Role modeling is the most important thing you can do. If you want your kids to have anger management skills, you've got to show them. What is that? Oh, I was talking about yelling. If you want your kids to have coping and calming skills, you got to show them. That means when shit don't go your way, what do? Get on the phone and gossip? Oh my God, do you know what? Do you know what? And do you tell your story 15 times to 15 people? Or 50 million times in your head that it's Stop it. When you notice, go, oh my God, shut the hell up. This is not helping you. It's not helping you. This is that living backwards thing, right? So if you want your kids to have anger management skills, it means when you've got a problem, how do I deal with this like an adult?
Start with a deep breath.
Start with a deep breath. What do we need here? Problems can be solved. Realities have to be accepted. Does that make sense? Problems can be solved. When we went to Louisiana, my grand sponsee had forgotten her wallet at the restaurant. We were 45 minutes outside. 45 minutes away from the restaurant. She forgot it there. I was like, in the grand scheme of life, this is not that big of a deal. If this is the worst thing that happens on our trip from Lafayette, Louisiana to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, if this is the worst thing that happens, we are good. You know? And it was just not that big of a deal. And guess what? Because I've been practicing this way of life for so long, it didn't even upset me. I was like, because guess what? All we have is time here. That's all we have. So you can't change it. Something you can ask yourself if you get really mad about something is, how much power, choice, or control do I have over this? You know? When I had to get a breast biopsy last year, it was kind of a scary thing. And I kind of went into fear a little bit, and then I went into prayer because that's what I've been taught, right? And the question that came to me, how much power, choice, or control do I have over whether or not I have breast cancer?
None.
None. I have none. So it's not going to help me any to go into fear, worry, anger, anguish when I don't even know what the truth is yet. That's just all made up.
Mm-hmm.
It's creating the misery of my future, right? Concocting it in my head, right? So when I realized I don't have any power, choice, or control what happened, I realized, you know what, boob or no boob, I'm going with God, right? Breast or no breast, right? Life or no life, I have no power, choice, or control. None of us are getting out of this alive anyway. You hear what I'm saying? So watch what you're practicing with your kids. Watch that anger. If you're demonstrating anger, you'll find that it's really hard. If you've been yelling at your kids and using this verbal aggression, you'll find it's really hard to then turn around and discipline them because you've already inflicted pain or injury on them, which is well outside of the range of what's appropriate and effective for kids. This has never been shown to be effective, right? Never been shown to be effective long term because it doesn't teach the kid what you want them to do. It punishes them for not having the skill. So you ask yourself, what's a skill that my kid needs? Does he need listening skills? Does he need anger management skills? Does he need coping and calming skills? What skills is my kid lacking here? And how can I teach them the skills that they need? Right? Do you hear how that's a way different way to look at parenting? Way different.
I find it's much harder to love them, or for them to accept your niceness after you've done degraded them.
You will have a process, and you will still have to show them that you are the parent, or like I say, the alpha. I'm the parent. You know, I'm the parent, you're the kid, and I'm sorry you don't like it, but this is how it is, sweetheart. You know? And so you'll have to still kind of get that authority in your relationship, okay? But it goes much better if you use discipline and not punishment. Does that make sense? I wanted to talk about yelling, right? How I stopped yelling. So I didn't notice it all, and then I started noticing. And then I'd notice at the end of the day, oh my gosh, I yelled so much today. Right? And I would feel terrible. Yelled at my baby that I love more than anything on the planet. He is why I got sober, by the way. Spirit sent him to me so I could have something to live for because I hated the woman I'd become. I hated everything about myself. I mean, self-loathing does not begin to describe how I felt about me and the woman that I had become, the woman that alcohol and drug use had asked me to be over a 10-year period. You heard what I'm saying? I hated me and the woman I'd become. Guess what? I'm not her anymore. Okay? So if you don't want to be her anymore, you don't have to be.
So do you have to rectify that, like when you're going to your inventory every night? Which is a really good thing for like me to just like sit back and think about my day.
Yeah.
And my interactions with people. So the next day, do you apologize for that?
Well,
or do you just
let me finish talking to you about it, okay? In the 11th step, it gives a very good outline of what to do at the end of the day, okay? And then it says we ask God what corrective measures. All right, we ask God what corrective measures. So, but then you don't ask what corrective measures and then go to your reasoning and your intellect to try to figure it out. You ask God for forgiveness and what corrective measures, and then you go to sleep. And you just trust you will be given what you need as you need it. And then what you do is you start noticing, instead of noticing at the end of the day, you start noticing 10 minutes after the event. You yell, you go in your room, you're mad, you're throwing shit around, then you go, Moment of clarity. Oh my God, I did it again. The book never says, no 12-step problem ever says, blame yourself, beat yourself up, shame yourself, belittle yourself. It never says that. Right? It actually says to remedy the behavior. It actually says to go to prayer. It says to make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. So I go back to my kid. Or you notice 10 minutes later, or you start noticing in the middle. When you're yelling, then you just stop. I should not have talked to you like that. Here's what I should have said. I should not have talked to you like that. Here's what I should have said. Right? Here's how I should have said that. And I tell the message that I give my kids, you never deserve to be yelled at. I don't, especially if you have boys, but even if you have girls, I don't want my boys marrying a crazy lady. Okay? And I don't want them to grow up feeling as though this energy in the house of aggression, control, is normal. I don't want them to grow up thinking this is the way we do it. Right? And if they grow up in that environment, that's what they're going to know. Now, don't get me wrong. If you've had this going on, Yolanda, it's okay. Because today's the day. Today's your point of power. Today's the day when you can move in a different direction. We have to stop doing the things that hurt us. And we have to stop doing the things that hurt our children. No one can intervene in your life on behalf of God except you. You are it. I'm the only one that can move my life in a different direction and stop blaming everybody else for my life and my situation. I am it. Does that make sense? Yes.
My daughter, I swear she's well beyond her years, but we'll lay together in bed at night and she reflects upon the day like I do.
Nice.
And she'll say, Mommy, are you sorry you yelled at me today? It just kills me.
Yeah. And what you do, and move from saying I'm sorry to saying I was wrong. Two very different messages. I was only able to stop yelling at my kids when I stopped saying I was sorry and I started saying I was wrong. I was wrong to talk to you like that. Here's how I should have said that. Right? And we would do this thing, Chance and I would, where we would start our day over. And one day we had to start our day over like 23 times. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was a Sunday. I remember it like it was yesterday. We went to bed at like 7 o'clock because I was just crazy. You know, and I was sick too. So, I mean, I had like, if you're not physically well, it's much harder to be emotionally and spiritually well. Okay, so be aware of that. That's what that hungry, angry, lonely, tired is about. Do you know that? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, which I also added pregnant to it. So it's fault. Not just fault. Because if you're pregnant, it's really hard to be spiritually fit. Right? And that's what they're talking about. If you're too hungry, too angry, too lonely, too tired, you have to take care of those basic needs. Right? If you don't, it doesn't mean if you're too hungry, you're going to go get loaded. That's not what they're talking about. But it is much more difficult to live by spiritual principles. To live differently. Right? To move in this direction, right? Instead of this evil direction where I'm hurting myself with my own actions, right? It's much more difficult to move in a positive direction when I'm not physically well. And that's all that's pointing to. Does that make sense? And because the more that remember the spiritual malady, restless, irritable, discontent, is what drives my mental obsessions, which is what drives my physical allergy. That's what sets me up for that physical allergy, right? So, what I want to say about that is the restless, irritable, discontent. If I continue to move in this direction and I'm not living up to my morals and values. I'm not living. See, you don't have to live up to my morals and values, and I don't have to live up to yours. But I got to try to live up to my own. Okay. And if I keep moving in this direction, and I'm doing the things that hurt me over and over, what's going to happen to my spiritual condition? Is that going to increase my restless, irritable, discontent, or is it going to decrease it? It's going to amp it up, man, because I can't stand being me. I can't stand with my conscience. I can't stand living with me knowing who I've been and what I've done. Right? Does that make sense? So we have to move in a different direction, and I'm the only one responsible for that. So amends with kids with yelling and with conduct like that, right, it looks like this. If you're in the middle of it, I burst into tears and fallen on my knees and just cried. And just said, I'm sorry. Now, don't get too much into self-pity with that, but some of that is normal. Like a repentance, like a very deep sadness for who I've been and what I've done to my children, right? Because just because I got sober doesn't mean I went off and perfectly parented. And I teach this stuff and I still make mistakes. I mean, haven't you heard me come in on a Wednesday? Well, I haven't done this for a while, so maybe you guys haven't heard me. But I've come in on a Wednesday morning and said, guess what? You don't have to yell at your kids anymore. I tried it this weekend and it still doesn't work. I haven't yelled at my kids for a little while. That's really wonderful. I hope I'm not setting myself up for something. Sometimes when you say it, then the opposite shows up. You know, it's kind of like spiritual, putting it out there. Yeah.
One problem I have is like when you talk about like instinctually or intuitively.
Intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know what to say. Like an example would be like we're going through the cafeteria line. I know what to say to my daughter and she'll respond perfect and it'll be perfect lunch, but I don't do it. And I don't know what the hell that is, but I know it. Right, I know how to respond.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm in front of people. I don't know if it's
Humility.
because I've gotten to a habit of when the drink comes, the behavior comes, and then
Right.
the habit comes. And now, like you said, just because I've been sober for almost a month,
The bad habits remain,
that's
don't
why
they?
I came here to get out of that.
Yeah.
I had to have a stop, and now I
Absolutely.
have to get better. But why
Good.
is it that when I know and I'm intuitively or instinctively, why do I still?
I'm not quite sure, and I don't know that why is the appropriate question, because why, let me tell you about the question of why. It's a very suffering question because it gives us an illusion of power, because if I know why, then I can change it. Okay? Do you hear the illusion of power in that?
Yeah.
If I know why, then I can change it, right? So I don't think we really need to know why, because we're not the power that changes it anyway. But I think that it's a habit. And I think it's very simple. It matters less why you're doing it than what can you do to move in a different direction. So, like I said, you're the only one that at that moment can go, wait a minute, I can choose differently today.
And I think it also what it is like for myself when I get doing things right and stuff. It's almost like I don't like to feel that good success or something. And so then
Yeah.
the same thing with the kids, but I don't
Yes.
know why I would put it on the kids.
I know,
Not
but
just
we're,
me.
because we're crazy. Because we're crazy.
That's
We
right.
have what's called positive triggers, where if I give myself any positive feedback at all, boom, I have to go do something wrong. It's this weird thing that we have. It's very strange. But you don't have to be in that rut forever, because when you bring it out into the light, when you call it what it is, then you can move differently. That's right. If it's a lie, it cannot stay in the light. A lie is a shadow energy, and when you bring the light into it, the shadow disappears. The only thing that stays is truth. Does that make sense? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why they have the saying in recovery, your secrets keep you sick. Whenever I would yell at my kid, if I yell at my kid today, I am on the phone with my sponsor. And I'm saying, I'm not proud of this, or my 10-step buddy. I'm not proud of this, but here's the deal. And a 10-step, by the way, does not involve a story. A 10-step does not involve anything about what they did. It's all me. Here's what I did. I was selfish. I yelled at my kid. I'm embarrassed. I'm humiliated. I'm ashamed of my conduct and my behavior, right? Because sometimes you're guilty because you're guilty.
That's right.
You should feel guilty if you're guilty. Guilt is a very effective emotion because it helps us to wake up. Oh, that kind of hurt. Wake up to what we're doing. Wake up to go, oh, that doesn't feel good. I need to move from going this way. I need to recalibrate my compass. And I need to move in a different direction. Guilt has a purpose, but it's supposed to be short term. We shouldn't carry it on for days and days and weeks and weeks.
Into self-pity.
Right? And yes, because then it will turn into self-pity. And one of my early sponsors told me, Erica, women drink in self-pity. Beyond any other state of being, women drink in self-pity.
Do you have a paper on this? I'm so sad I missed it.
I don't have a
good.
I also
paper.
just recently heard this saying, that
But I can try to make one because I'm recording it.
That'd be
I can
awesome.
try to make a paper.
emotional distress causes spiritual detachment, leads to spiritual detachment.
Mhm.
Emotional distress.
Yeah.
So when you're not dealing
I
with
can
that
see
stuff,
that. Yeah,
you're all wrapped up in it, and you're not
that's right.
doing this.
That's right. Absolutely.
I'm a big yeller at my kid and I really want to stop, so how
Yeah.
would I go back
Act
to
like
doing that?
someone's there
Pretend,
with you.
yes, that's
Well,
right.
you can act like someone's there with you. Well, have somebody that loves you there. Okay? Not somebody that's going to judge you. Whenever I'm calling somebody, here's what you do. You call your sponsor or your peer that loves you and trusts you. Is not going to go gossip about you to people,
Yeah.
right? And if you're gossiping, stop. If that's what, because I know that that's what women do a lot of time, but try to remember this. If you're talking about what other people are doing, try to remember it's because you're the fish you got to catch, and you don't want to look at what you're up to. Okay, the other thing about gossip is it's a very 12-year-old behavior. Okay? Just saying. I'm not saying that I've never done it. I'm saying it's not very effective if you want to move into a different way of living. Right? What was I going to say? I was going to say something else about yelling. How to stop yelling. Okay, just a second. How to stop yelling. So, and then we'll take those 2 questions and then we'll be done, okay? Because we got to wrap up. So the other thing about yelling is that when you find yourself doing it, in the moment that you notice, you stop. If you're in the minute or if you're 10 minutes later that night, you stop, you reflect, forgive me. You know, at the end of the day, of course, you're using it, you're looking at it in your 10th step, or your 11th step is at the end of the day, excuse me. But if you're in the middle of yelling at your kids and you notice, that's fantastic. Because guess what? This is why you don't have to have shame about it. Shame is about who you are. Guilt is about what you've done. 2 very different emotions. Okay, but if you're noticing and you're bringing it out in the light, like we were just talking about, you're bringing that shadow energy. Our secrets keep us sick. That means the stuff that we keep in here will grow in the dark. Right? The lies will grow and we'll start to think they're the truth about us. Hear what I'm saying? So you can't leave them in here. You have to bring them out into the light. Our book constantly is using this analogy of illuminating things, bringing things into the light, right? And so it's our secrets that keep us sick. It's not even just the big deal secrets. It's these little yelling that we do at our kids, the kind of crap I'm getting away with in my house. Hear what I'm saying? So when you notice, you make the amends quickly if you've harmed anyone, which kind of looks like, buddy, and I get right down at their level. Buddy, I'm really sorry for talking to you like that. Mommy should never talk to you like that. You do not deserve to be talked to like that ever. One time my 6-year-old, when he was, my big boy, he said, because I've been practicing this for 2 or 3 years, right? And he said, that's okay, Mommy, because if I wouldn't have done that, you wouldn't have had to yell at me. And I said, right. I said, oh, honey, that's not true. That is not true. It doesn't matter what you do. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. You do not deserve to be yelled at. And Mommy is the one who's wrong. You're just acting 6, buddy. That's okay, Mommy's responsible for Mommy's behavior. My kid is not responsible for the words coming out of my mouth. And I don't care what they've done. I'm responsible. When do you want to have yelling as appropriate?
Never. At a football game.
At a football game. Emergency. Your kid's running towards a street.
Thank you.
If you're yelling at this level and this is how you talk to your kids all day long, do they get desensitized?
Yes.
Yes. And then they cannot hear you for the big deal things that they need to be hearing you on. If your kids are yelling, you're fighting, yelling, instead of trying to come over the top of them because, right, that doesn't work. Try to come up underneath them. Hey, guess what? We're going to try something different tonight, or whatever it is you need to tell them, okay? Try to come up underneath them. It works very effectively. So you get down, you say, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have talked to you like that. Mommy was wrong. And Mommy's trying really hard. I always said, I'm trying so hard, baby. I'm trying so hard. And Mommy's trying to be different. And I just couldn't get different quick. I had to go through the paces, man. But if you could just go from dying this dirty, filthy, alcoholic death by living this dirty, filthy, alcoholic, drug-addicted life, right? To being so spiritual, you're just like levitating out of the room. Right? What are you going to have to offer the new gal that comes down the road? Nothing. You have to walk through the fire. You have to go through the experiences so that you have something that is tangible, that is real. You didn't learn it from a frickin' book. You know it because you went through it. And that is the spirit that helps us when we help others, because your real life is going to depend on your working with others. I mean, would they say you got to give it away
To get it.
You got to give it away to keep it? It's really you got to give it away to get it. Once you start giving it away, you really start to see, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than me, right?
Okay, so I know that we have 5 minutes left, so, and I don't even know if we talked about this, but my 2-year-old, and I know this is a normal 2-year-old behavior, is repeat. Mom, I want this, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, and then pretty soon I'm like,
So do you have a tool that you can
Coping and calming skills.
just...
I mean, just remember that I'm responsible. She's just acting too. Use humor. Try to move her direction try to move her energy in a different way. Try to even going from inside to outside can kind of shift their energy a little bit. But just remember, I'm responsible for my conduct. I'm responsible. It doesn't matter what they do. If there's two things I could get out of your vocabulary as parents that I've had to take out of mine, and I still hear myself saying sometimes, one is, how many times do I have to tell you?
Yes.
Right?
Guilty.
Yeah,
Me too,
I'm
yeah.
guilty, you know. How many times do I have to tell you? The other one, why can I not think of it? I don't know. I'll think of it in a second. Because how many times do you have to tell them? Who doesn't have to tell them a lot? Have you ever written in a book you should only have to tell your kids twice and they're done and good? Or once, for God forbid? No. It's our job to teach them. So, when your kid has a behavior, or when they need to go put away your shoes. Remember we talked about this a few weeks ago. Go put away your shoes and hang up your backpack. What do you need to do? Go put away my shoes and hang up my backpack. That's right, buddy. Good thinking. Right? Oh, which reminds me, I still got to talk about the thing about why you don't want to praise the kid. You want to praise the behavior. I didn't finish that thought. So you say, good thinking, and then you have to watch them. And when he goes, oh, pencil, you go, hey, buddy, what do you need to be doing? Do not tell the kid what you want them to do. Let him use his thinker. That is how they learn to solve their own problems, because you enable them to solve some of their own problems. What do you need to be doing, buddy? And if your kids are like my kids, they will look at you like this.
Yep.
Yeah, you can help them out, because the more you practice this with them, the more they will learn. What do you need to be doing? Allison, I don't have time. What do you need to be doing, right? And so then when you then you continue to watch them, and you watch them hang up their coat, you watch them put away their shoes, right? And you help them to teach them that skill. Does that make sense? What I want to say about why you don't praise the kid, you praise the behavior, because I was talking about making mistakes and how we all make mistakes. So if you do that, that means you're good. If you do that, that means you're bad. If you make a mistake, you're bad. That's when they start to internalize it. So you want to say, instead to kids, you want to say, wow, good thinking. Wow, good job. That really helps, Mommy, when you put away your shoes. Wow, that really helps, Mommy, when you did that.
So what do you say when they're bad? I was going to say positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement.
So what do you say when they're bad?
Exactly. That's.
I don't think my kids are ever bad.
Their behaviors.
Wait, well, hold on, Erica.
Their behaviors are bad. Your kid isn't
so
bad.
I don't even think their behaviors are bad. I think they're naughty sometimes. But remember, what did I start the class with? The only thing my kids do wrong is they act their age all day long. Are they really just acting two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they really just acting? So if you can remember that, then they're not being bad. They may be being naughty. Are you ever naughty?
Yeah.
Do you ever want to be punished for being naughty, or would you like to be taught how to live differently?
Yeah.
Hear what I'm saying? So give your kids the same respect that you want, right?
Wait 2 seconds. Why can't I give my kid a timeout?
It doesn't mean timeout could be over here if it is in the realm of teaching them how to take time for themselves. It could be over here. You want timeout to move from this time to separate you because of punishment, because that's kind of how it feels when they're 2 and they don't yet have that skill. But by the time they get older and older and older, you will demonstrate a timeout. Mommy needs a timeout. I need time to go reflect and take a deep breath, right? I one time said to my kids, you know what, I need to be able to say something. This is when I just had 1. I said, I need to be able to, he was like 10. I was like, I need to be able to say something that makes sense right now, and I'm not coming up with anything. So you go to your room, I'm going to go to my room, we're going to take 15 minutes, and we're going to meet in the middle, right? And then we were fine. Because I demonstrated the necessity of a timeout. Time to reflect, time to regain your composure. I don't have a timeout limit for my kids once they reach 5 years old. They can go to their room for as long as they need. If they need to cry, if they need to punch their pillow, I've taught them these skills. Go take care of your feelings, right? Don't inflict them on the rest of the family. I don't say, we don't want to hear that. I just say, that's hard for us to hear that. It's hard for us to hear you crying. And if sometimes I'll sit with them if they want me to, sometimes not. But they're welcome to come down as soon as they are ready. Sometimes they come down before they're ready. Right? Sometimes they come down before they're ready, and I just say, oh, buddy, I think maybe you still need a little more time. You know, you're still, when you can contribute and be a giver and not a taker in our house and promote some unity and have some compassion for the other family members, then you're ready. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you guys for class today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay, Erica.
Yay!